Hey everyone, hello and welcome to my review of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. The first big thing that I want to talk about in this game is honestly what I think is probably the best feature, and that's the customization. It's so much better and has so much more variety than the first game. The skill trees are awesome. There's a skill tree for almost every gameplay feature, like your stances, force abilities, and of course your health. There's a skill tree for each and every stance in the game. As for stances, I just want to mention my personal favorite stance is definitely the blaster stance. It's very fast and does very good stun damage, at least that's what I think. The moves and the upgrades for it are awesome, and I felt that this stance was a good one to challenge any enemy and any boss in the game, because that's the great thing about the stances. I feel that every boss, you can do any stance you want, but each boss has a stance that they're weak against, and that can really help you fight that boss and make it a little bit easier for you. Now, I also do want to mention this game is an absolute dream for people like me. People that love to collect every single thing the game has to offer. For example, there are a total of 184 chests in Jedi Survivor. Compared to Fallen Order, as my information, if it's correct, Fallen Order has about 3 chests per planet, honestly. This also speaks to the size of the game, of course. Every planet is very, very big, and there are multiple underground levels to each planet, which makes the open world so much more expansive. But rolling right back to combat, I feel that combat is so much smoother, and I think this really complements the game because the boss fights are another highlight. In my opinion, the boss fights are very, very good, and they are so fun. The lightsaber battles and everything, they are so challenging on the harder difficulties, and they are so much fun. They look so darn beautiful. Speaking of the difficulty, like I said, it is very hard. I started this game on Jedi Grandmaster, the hardest difficulty in the game. Now, unfortunately, I did end up lowering it just by 1. I lowered it to Jedi Master instead of Grandmaster. This came right after my second fight with Dagan Gera, as it took me about 2 hours, embarrassingly to say. It took me 2 hours to beat that fool. Now, I want to go back and touch on exploration. Exploration is one of my absolute favorite things to do in any video game, no matter what it is. And Star Wars Jedi Survivor has exploration. It is beautiful. It is awesome. The environments, the collectibles, the gear you can collect, the lightsaber parts, all of it just feels so worth it. And there are so much variety. There are so many colors, so many gear pieces, all the hairstyles and all the beards. You can make some absolutely funny and badass creations. For example, here is my lightsaber that I made. So we talked about combat, we talked about customization, we talked about exploration. What about the story? Well, for me, the story was good. The story was a decent part. I didn't feel the story was absolutely amazing and stellar, like it's going to blow you away. But there are really, really good fights and really good plot twists, honestly. And there's some really epic moments. Unfortunately, now I would like to talk about my cons. I really enjoyed this game, everything I said about it. I know this is a little short and sweet, but there is a lot more depth to the game. Unfortunately, the thing that I feel was the biggest thing for the game was the performance issues. The performance issues, unfortunately, take all the good things and just make them not as good. So, when I started this game, I started on performance mode, 60 frames per second. I turned off motion blur and film grain. Unfortunately, even though I had those settings, it didn't matter because it felt like I was at 20 frames with motion blur on. Eventually, I decided, well, if I'm not getting 60 frames, let's switch to fidelity and at least get ray tracing. But unfortunately, performance mode was the only thing keeping me at a somewhat stable frame rate, even when I switched to fidelity mode. The frames dipped down even lower and the stability just was not there. So unfortunately, that was a lost cause. Other issues I'd like to touch on are really bad pop-in and texture issues. Whenever I would enter a zone, all the textures just weren't loaded. They'd take a minute, and then I'd get stuck on something, I have no idea what, and then pop, an object pops in right in front of me. Unfortunately, that just really ruined my taste for the game. Although, when you go to smaller cave-like areas, the quality and performance improves, but not entirely. It only improves a little, which is unacceptable for me. And this brings me to my next point. The new business practice of push out a game when it's not ready and update and fix it later is just unacceptable. Some people have accepted this fact and said, you know what, whatever, it's fine. It'll be good eventually. But here's the thing. In order to justify $70 video games, you need to deliver a finished product at release. For me personally, I don't have the money to just go and buy a $70 game and then it not be finished. With that $70, I expect to have a playable and finished game that I can enjoy for hours and hours. And of course, with the performance issues and rushing the game out, fixing it later, bugs, glitches, that's going to drag down the overall score for me because it drags down the overall quality of the game. Jedi Survivor is a hell of a sequel that builds upon the first game so well. Although the performance issues bring down the score, the game is still very good, and the story is good but not great. The third act definitely does stumble a little, but I think that's because they wanted to leave room for a third game. But even after all that, if it weren't for the performance issues, I would be compelled to give this game a 10 out of 10. As it is the best Star Wars game you could probably ever have. But due to performance issues and shipping the game unfinished and unstable, I'm going to have to give this game, Jedi Survivor, a 7.5 out of 10. I just want to come in here right at the end and say thank you guys so much for the support. We have 50 subscribers, that's big for me. I've been on YouTube for a lot of years and I'm at 50 subscribers now. I hope to only grow from here. I definitely will be doing more reviews if you guys want to see them. I plan on reviewing Marvel Spider-Man 2 later this year. I don't have any reviews planned for before that game releases. But if you guys would like to see a review of a particular game, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I will see you guys in the next one. This is Nightwing 55 signing out.